Hi, welcome to the Brunswick Library for Pumpkin Science. I'm Miss Cathy, and Miss Linda will be joining us real soon for some pumpkin experiments. But for now, we're going to talk about pumpkin parts. So let's get to know our pumpkin, all right? First of all, let's talk about pumpkins and find out whether or not they're a fruit or a vegetable. What do you think? Is a pumpkin a fruit or a vegetable? If you said fruit, you were right. It seems kind of funny, but it is a fruit. And the reason a pumpkin is a fruit is because it's grown from a seed. And all fruits are grown from a seed. So here's a tiny little pumpkin seed, okay? It's kind of white, kind of a funny shape. It's not quite round. It's a little oval with a pointy end at the top. Once you plant your pumpkin seed in the ground, all right, and then it gets rained on, and this ground gets warmed by the sun, your pumpkin plant will grow. And it'll grow pretty big. You can see I have some pumpkin plant parts with me here, and the leaves get huge. And the stems grow way out into your yard. And these little tendrils that are on pumpkin stems will grasp things in your straw or your grass so that your pumpkin plant can really stretch out so it can grow huge pumpkins. Once it's stretched out, it'll develop these pretty little golden flowers. Now this flower is a little spent. It doesn't look very pretty anymore. But you'll notice at the end of the flower is a little pumpkin that was starting to grow. It's a little bit green right now, but it'll turn pretty pumpkin color, pretty orange. So if this plant had been allowed to grow, this would have been a pumpkin. So once the pumpkin is grown on your plant, a pumpkin develops 4 months later, and then you can pick it or cut it off right here, and this is the stem that was on the plant. Another word for a stem is peduncle. That's kind of a funny word. It's P-E-D-U-N-C-L-E. Peduncle. Yeah. All right, so here's our peduncle on our pumpkin, and here's the shell of our pumpkin. And you'll notice that on the shell there are these crevices or ridges all around the pumpkin, all right? Also, at the very bottom of your pumpkin is this little dent right here, and this is where actually the flower was when your pumpkin started to grow. So the flower was there first, and then the pumpkin grew, and then the flower fell off when it was completely spent, okay? Now, if we open up our pumpkins, woo, and we look inside, we see all of these funny little fibrous strands, and hanging off of them are our pumpkin seeds. Yeah, so let's open it up, turn it over so you can see inside. There are more fibrous strands and lots more seeds. And this right here is actually the pulp of the pumpkin. This is the part we like to eat, okay? So this is the part that Mom will cut out of there and cook up, and then she can make pumpkin pie and pumpkin cookies and pumpkin bread, all that good stuff, all right? Now, a lot of people wonder how many seeds are in a pumpkin. It looks like quite a few, and if you really dig around in there, you can pull them out. And there's quite a few in there stuck with all that fibrous stuff. Yeah, and they're real gooey. Well, to find out how many pumpkin seeds are in your pumpkin, what you would do for an estimate, you would count these ridges on your pumpkin, okay? And you would multiply by 16. Along each of these ridges on the inside of the pumpkin is where the seeds actually grow, okay? So there's a ridge here, and on the inside of the pumpkin, on the opposite side, on the inside, there are a line of pumpkin seeds growing, and that happens all around here. So I counted 20 pumpkin ridges on this pumpkin, and I multiplied by 16, and I came up with 320 seeds in this pumpkin. Now that is an estimate, okay? But if you wanted to know how many seeds were really in your pumpkin, you would have to take off the lid and actually count them all, okay? Now remember, if your pumpkin gets tall, those ridges get longer, so there may be more seeds along a tall pumpkin's ridge. And also another point you should know is that the older your pumpkin is, the more ridges that it'll have. So that's a good way to tell whether or not pumpkin is older. So if you want to figure out exactly how many pumpkin seeds you have in your pumpkin, what you need to do is scoop out all those fibrous strands and then put your seeds in piles of 10, okay? This is the easiest way to do it, I think. After you've got all of your seeds counted out into piles of 10, you can easily count by tens, 10, 20, 30, 40, and so on to find out how many seeds are in your pumpkin. All right, well, next up is Miss Linda with a fun science experiment for you.
Thanks, Miss Cathy, for that great pumpkin information. Boys and girls, now we're going to do an experiment, and it's going to be using a pumpkin and a tub of water, and it's called sink or float. So we're going to ask the very scientific question, will our pumpkin sink or will it float in the water? So first we need to define a couple of words, and one of the words is sink. So when something sinks, when you put it in a tub of liquid, it will go all the way down to the bottom. That's what it means, to sink to the bottom. Now, when you put something in the water and it goes all the way to the top, or it hovers around the top, that means that it floats. So now we know what the words sink and float mean. Now, we have on our tub of water, I'm going to point out that we have a line here, and I just used painter's tape, and I put a line to show the top level of the water. And we're going to watch that line while we're doing our experiment to see if something happens to the water when we put our pumpkin in. Are you ready for the experiment? All right, let's put it in. Here we go. This is a heavy pumpkin. And I'm going to put him gently down into the water. Watch that water level, boys and girls. Okay, he's bobbing up and down just a little bit. And first of all, let's look at our water level. Look at that tape line that we were just talking about. It looks like the water level went up, but we didn't add any water, did we? What do you think happened to that? That's called displacement, and that's what happens when you put something in this water. That means that the water displaces. It moves to make room for what we put in the water, and it also moved up. And if you look at our tub, it has 4 sides in the bottom. There's nowhere else for the water to go. So the water had to displace or move upward when we put our pumpkin in. Now let's take a look at our pumpkin. It's getting nice and still. And look at the bottom of the tub. I can see plenty of space down there, and there's lots of water down there, and it looks like our pumpkin is floating. That's right, boys and girls. Our pumpkin is floating toward the top. So it's kind of half over the water and half under. Now, why is he floating, you ask? He is floating because if you go back to think about what Miss Cathy said about pumpkins, they have seeds and fibers inside. But when we looked in the pumpkin, you can also see spaces around the seeds and fiber. And those spaces have air. Our pumpkin is hollow. Now, that is what happened to our pumpkin. What do you think is going to happen if we added another pumpkin? Let's see if I have my pumpkin under here. I have another pumpkin. Do you think this will sink or float? And what will happen to our water line? Let's watch carefully, and I'll put this right down into the water. There we go. All right, now we have 2 pumpkins in the water. And if you look at our tape line right here, you'll see that the water went up again. So that's more displacement of the water. The water level went up. And did you think that it would float? Absolutely. Our pumpkin floated. So we have 2 pumpkins that floated. You can do this experiment at home too. If you don't have a big tub like this, you could try it even in your bathtub or a big sink. So I want you to try some pumpkin experiments. Hope you enjoyed ours. More pumpkin fun coming right up.
Hi there. Wow, Miss Linda, that was really cool about that science experiment you just had with real pumpkins. But right now we're going to move on to an experiment that doesn't involve real pumpkins. It involves something a little bit sweeter than that. And that would be jelly candies in pumpkin shapes. So if you like sweet treats and you like engineering, this little lab experiment is for you. What we've got here today is little jelly pumpkin candies and round toothpicks. Those are the things you're going to need for this experiment. Now you can use mallow pumpkins, but sometimes they're a little hard and they break apart when you're doing this experiment. Another thing that you might want to keep in mind is that there are flat tapered toothpicks, but they're not as strong as the regular round toothpicks, so I would suggest both of these items to do this. So if you like working with Legos or any other building toys, this is the activity for you. What we have spread out on the table here are a different variety of things that have been built that you can build as well, but you have to build your own special architecture. We do have two things here, two kinds of building supplies, and the first one is a structure that is made out of candies into a triangle shape. Okay, so we have 3 candies and 3 toothpicks. Over here we have 4 candies and 4 toothpicks. So we've made a triangle structure and a square structure. I want you to think about it. Which one do you think is the strongest structure? You might remember the Eiffel Tower. It's made with triangles. It has a wide base and a tapered top, and it's made of all triangles. That wide base made of triangles makes it super strong, and the triangles that go all the way up the Eiffel Tower help create a really strong and stable structure. It couldn't have been made with squares because it wouldn't be nearly as strong. So think about the cell phone towers that you might see and other things in our community that are made with triangles that make those structures really tall and strong. So once you've got your supplies, your candies, your toothpicks, go ahead and try to build different things to make triangles. Here's a triangle structure. And remember, triangles are parts of 3 toothpicks, 3 candies, and then build out from that and see how strong it is. Now when you try your square, compare it and see which one's stronger. Which one do you feel might break the more you press on it? Here's another structure that was made all of triangles. And here's another one that was started out with squares and is a triangle top. It almost looks like a house. Right over here, we've got a nice lacing structure. And this one actually reminds me of a Ferris wheel that moves around. So go ahead, grab your supplies, see what you can build with candies and toothpicks.
Hi there, boys and girls. We are back at the Medina County District Library Brunswick branch Pumpkin Lab. And we're going to be making some pumpkin slime today. I know everybody loves slime. Every year when we have slime here, people just really want to make it. They want to get their hands into it. And we are going to make pumpkin slime. So what I did before we started, before we went on camera, was I cut the top of the pumpkin. And your grown-up will need to help you with this. And then I kind of twisted and turned, and I lifted it off, and look at that. Those lovely guts are right there. All of that. All of the fibers and the seeds are there, and I'm just going to put that right over here. What we're going to work with is on the inside. So let me show you the inside of my pumpkin. It still has all the fibers and the seeds in it, and I'm going to stir that around a little bit because I want that to be loose. I want all of those seeds and all that fiber to be in my pumpkin slime. I want them to be very, very slimy. So I take a spoon and I'm just scraping the inside, and you know it takes just a minute to do that. I'm stirring all of these seeds. And remember, after you make pumpkin slime in your pumpkin, you can't eat your pumpkin, okay? You can still carve it, you can still use it for decoration, but please do not eat it after you make slime. All right, the ingredients that we need in our slime are liquid starch, which I have some right here. I'm just kind of stirring it around to make sure that it's ready to go. I also need a ½ cup of clear glue, or you can use white glue, but the reason I used clear is so we can see the pumpkin inside. The seeds will show. And we need some water. So I'm going to dump this glue into the water and mix it together. We want it thick, but we don't want it too thick. There we go. That's dumped in there, and then I'm just going to kind of give it a stir. It's going to be a lot looser than regular glue. It's still clear. There we go. My water was just a little bit warm. If you do room temperature water, that should be good. That's going to help that glue break up just a little bit. Now here we go. This happens fast, so make sure you're looking. Okay, I've already stirred everything up. What I'm going to do is I'm going to pour my glue and water in. There we go. See if I can tilt this down. It just looks like glue and water in there. There's no slime yet, but it sure is mushy in there. Very, very mushy. All right, I'm stirring that in just to get everything nice and wet. The second thing I do is I'm going to take my starch and I'm going to pour it right into the pumpkin. So we don't even need a bowl for this one. We're mixing it all in the pumpkin. I'm going to dump it. Then I'm going to stir and stir. Oh my goodness, it's happening fast. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to put my hand in here. Oh my goodness. Oh, it's slimy. Slimy, slimy, slimy. Oh, it's really getting slimy. Let me see if I can dump some of this slime out here. There we go. Oh, there it is right there. Okay, let me see if I can string this out for you a little bit. Keep working with it because you know that's the fun of slime. You just keep on working with it. Oh my goodness, it's very slimy. Very slimy. It's getting stringier. Even though there are more strings in here from the pumpkin, it's even slimier. Very, very slimy. Wow. Very, very. Look at all those seeds. Some of the seeds fell out, but some are still in there. And this, now, just a little side note, if you don't want to use the liquid starch in there, there's slime activator that you can buy at the store, although we had fun making our own here. Or you can use borax solution. So you can find that sometimes in your laundry detergent aisle. But this really is kind of solid. If you want to keep this and play with it a little longer after you get finished, then you're going to put it in a tightly sealed container. So that'll keep for a little while. But remember, no eating these seeds and no eating this pulp. Just have some nice squishy fun. Boy, that feels slimy. Oh my goodness. Hope you had fun in this Pumpkin Lab segment. We have more pumpkin fun coming up.
Wow, Miss Linda, that was a lot of fun making that pumpkin slime. Well, we're going to do something else equally as fun here today, and that is we're going to make a chemical reaction with some common supplies or products. And you'll need several things to do this. First of all, you're going to need a pumpkin that's been turned into a jack-o'-lantern, all right? So that's something you're going to need help with from mom and dad or your grown-up. And your grown-up's also going to need to help you with gathering some of the supplies and actually doing this chemical reaction science experiment. So make sure you have your pumpkin and your parents with you. Some of the things that you're going to need are rubber gloves, 20% hydrogen peroxide by volume, and this is from a beauty supply store. You can't use what you would normally get at the drugstore, okay? And we're going to use one whole cup of that hydrogen peroxide. We're going to use 2 tablespoons of regular dishwashing liquid. We're going to use 6 tablespoons of warm water and 2 tablespoons of dry yeast, and that would just be 2 packets. And you'll need a spoon as well. Make sure that your table's covered or you're doing this outside because we are going to create a chemical reaction. You need your parents with you. The first thing you're going to do, and your grown-up will do as well, is to put on some rubber gloves to protect your hands. And then you will take your 1 cup of 20% hydrogen peroxide, and you're going to mix 2 tablespoons of common dishwashing liquid together. So we'll just let that all drain in there, and we swish it around just a little bit. And then we're going to pour it into an empty container. I forgot to mention that we're going to need an empty container, and you'll pour your hydrogen peroxide and your dishwashing liquid into that empty container. Little splashes and spills are okay, don't worry about that. That's why you've covered your table. And then your empty container is going to go inside your jack-o'-lantern. Okay, so you place it right in there, nice and steady it has to be. And then you will take your 6 tablespoons of warm water and add your 2 tablespoons of dry yeast. Now this is the part that takes a little bit of time because you have to make sure that your dry yeast is blended real well with your water. If you've ever done any baking of bread with mom or dad at home, you know that this is important because yeast is the leavening agent that causes your bread to expand and rise. Okay, so bear with me, it takes a couple minutes. See, my yeast is kind of gloppy right now, so I have to stick my finger on there and mash it around a little bit with my spoon. Get it good and mixed up, because this is really important, okay? You don't want any glops in there. I kind of have to mash it around the side of the container here. All right. So what you want is a combination of yeast and water that has a real liquidy, kind of watery feel to it. Okay, just like that. All right. And here comes the fun part. You ready? All right. This water and yeast mixture is going to go into the container that you have just placed inside your jack-o'-lantern. All right. And we'll see if there's a chemical reaction that happens. Are you ready? Keep your eyes peeled. We're going to pour this into that container. Put the lid on and see what happens. Oh my gosh! It's an oozing pumpkin or jack-o'-lantern. What a great chemical reaction we have created here with our jack-o'-lantern. Our yeast and our hydrogen peroxide blended together to create little air bubbles, and they expanded and caused foam, and our jack-o'-lantern foamed at the mouth and the nose and the eyeballs. And also we've created an exothermic reaction, and that is where if you put your hand near the foam, you'll feel heat. It'll be warm, and that is called an exothermic reaction. So that was pretty fun. I enjoyed it. I hope you did too. And the next part is the not so fun part. That's the cleanup. Okay, so don't forget, you have to do that with your parents at home. I hope you enjoyed all of our experiments here at Pumpkin Science. We were so glad, Miss Linda and I, to share this time with you. Have a great day.